Start from kind of the very beginning and what progressed me into heart failure and explain kind of the signs to look out for, etc. So basically, I became a dad at 22 years old with my oldest son, Ryder, and that led to a lot of stress on my shoulders because I was the only provider. My wife was very young, and I was very scared and very young still in that sense to take on a whole family, be a provider, etc. So after having my oldest son, it caused a lot of stress, and I became drinking more frequently. Not to say I was drinking more, but it was more frequent because every day I'd come home from work or something like that, I'd pop a beer, and then go see my son, go see my wife, and that became very normal for me at that point. As time went on, obviously that's going to affect your body. Nobody can sustain that kind of lifestyle. So without me knowing it, it was already starting to take a toll on my heart. As time progressed, I wound up getting COVID back in 2021, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So back in 2021, I ended up with my first round of COVID. That hit me really hard. I was very sick. I was down for a little while, and apparently I never seemed to recover, although I felt like I had recovered. It had already started taking a toll on my heart, which we started noticing from when I was actually diagnosed with heart failure. I'll get to that in a minute, but it had already started taking its toll on my heart based upon improved heart rates through my watch, etc. A lot of metrics that we were able to look back on and really see, okay, this is when it initially started, moving forward to the future to when I actually wound up in the hospital for the first time. So as time progressed over the next couple of years, I was again back to normal, more or less. But through that portion from 2021 to 2024, I had noticed that I was having more chest pains. Anytime I became stressed, my chest would hurt. It would feel like my heart was kind of coming down on my chest. And then as time led on, in the last year or two prior to 2024, I had started having episodes where I was blacking out, kind of losing consciousness, not really being very fully aware of why I was losing consciousness or, ending up on the floor randomly. I can tell you it wasn't due to me drinking. So it was very weird at that point what was going on with my body, but I dismissed it as anxiety.
And you'd always say you felt like you were having a heart attack. Like, that's what you'd always say. Like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah, so it was, an array of kind of feelings that I'd have. But all of them kind of pertained back to my heart and how my heart felt at that point. So fast forward to 2024, some of these symptoms are becoming more and more prevalent, and I wound up with COVID again in July, at the end of July in 2024. Now, this time that I got COVID, again, I was sick, I was down, I was out. Ended up recovering from COVID about 2-3 weeks later. Felt okay for the first short period of time, but noticed I'd started retaining a lot of fluid. Still was having the heart pains and problems that I was having previously, which I kept dismissing as anxiety, but I did notice I was starting to retain fluid. So after going to the doctors, urgent cares, etc., and then dismissing it as white coat syndrome, I ended up in the hospital.
Well, also you had jaundice, too.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
holding fluid.
I was retaining fluid, and when I was retaining fluid, my bilirubin had rise. Now, obviously, that's going to be a component of my liver. I didn't realize it at the time, but other organs in my body were starting to fail due to me having heart failure at that point. And so I was hospitalized in October of 2024 for the first time. When I went into the hospital, they had started off with I was in liver failure. That was what I was initially told when they hospitalized me. They told me, you're in liver failure, we're going to admit you so we can do further testing and kind of figure out how bad it is and what's really going on. So they admit me to the hospital. I was there for a total of 5 days, and over the course of that time, it went from me being in liver failure to my liver was just damaged, but my heart was failing. And it progressed even further to they were possibly thinking that I was already at that point in end stage heart failure. Really scary news for me. Obviously, this happened back in 2024, so I was only 30 years old at the time when I got this news, and it terrified me. Again, I'm a young dad. I have 2 young boys. Now their ages 10 and 7. At the time, they were 8 and 6, and it was detrimental to me. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know what to think, and I felt terrible for my family that they're going to go through this horrible thing with me. Although I'm the one that's really going through it physically, they're all going to have to go through it emotionally, which terrified me even more than me having to go through it myself. So, was in the hospital, ended up getting out, and then I moved to a cardiologist. Now, I'm going to stop from there. If you guys want to hear more about kind of my story and everything, go ahead and follow along, and we'll be releasing part 2 shortly here. Thanks, guys.